Speaking of reliability, a podcast with good friends talking with you about reliability engineering topics. Welcome to Speaking of Reliability. This is Fred Schenkelberg.
And good morning. This is Greg Hutchins.
Hey, Greg. Hey, we were chatting and I said, hey, we got to hit record. And we were talking about, there's in the news and there's all kinds of money going into it. And there's announcements of big factories and plants and facilities getting set up. And this concept of people rebuilding American manufacturing, the reshoring, bringing stuff back. Now, for decades, and I remember when I was at Hewlett-Packard, and this is almost 20 plus years ago, I talked to a plant operations manager in Singapore that was one of three remaining factories that HP still ran. Now, originally, HP was nearly vertically integrated. At one point, rumor had it was that Bill and Dave made their own screws because they couldn't source good enough screws to put their electronics boxes together. And they bought a screw making machine and made their own. And now, 50 years later, after the company started, they had three remaining factories and they were getting ready to shut those down. And this ops manager said, once we lose the knowledge of how things made, we're taking on a whole lot of risk and have to trust that those that are making it for us actually understand the big picture, that if they do a good job, they keep the business. The people buy our products. And he was really worried about it because he wouldn't be able to hire talent to oversee the selection and operations of third-party manufacturers that understood exactly what they were doing, because the good people would go work for those manufacturers. And he said, we're going to lose that ability to really understand how products are made. And and over time, he was exactly right. There's story after story after story of going to a third party and it just fallen apart.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But this notion of more and more companies coming back to the States and all other stuff, and the parallel to that, and it's been in the asset management world and maintenance management world for a couple of decades now, is that talent, the people that can maintain your equipment and facilities, they're aging out. There's not a pipeline of new people coming into the trades. But then in the middle of that, there's not a lot of people that know how to design and build a manufacturing line. We just had a diminishing market for that. So people have gone into other fields. And so it's everything from the maintenance crew to the welders and builders of the equipment and building and setting them up and operating them. And it affects the entire chain all the way up to the senior management. There's not that many people with the experience. And here we are trying to bring it all back to the country, but we didn't spend the last 10 years creating the right atmosphere, or what's the right term here, Greg, is right situation to get people actually to want to do that stuff.
Wow. So a quick story about that. In 87, I was a project manager engineer on a tank farm, and we were using exotic materials like stainless,
Mm-hmm.
And stainless welding is stick and it's very sophisticated and it's very specialized. And just to give you an idea, everything in the plant, all the piping was stainless, all the valving, stainless. Stainless costs 10 times to 15 times, not 15% more, 15 times more than a regular valve. So anyway, we needed people who could do stick welding. So here I am, I'm basically the project manager, project engineer. Below me, I've got superintendents for every trade,
Mm-hmm.
And below that, in the welding area, there was a shift supervisor because we were running 2 shifts a day building this plant. It was a a tank farm and right next to an LNG facility, as a matter of fact. We had to find people. Anyway, we couldn't find anybody, literally zero. And this was in '87. Tell you
Yeah.
how many years ago.
Well, if I'm thinking if you were um, in the Northeast, I think there's a big naval shipyard at one time that was up there. I'm thinking
Hmm.
Bremerton, is that right?
Yep, exactly.
Right. But I don't know that there's a whole lot of shipbuilding going on. And, while some of those systems include stick welding and stainless, it's not, even then, it's not the total business of it. So there might have been one or two people that knew how to do that. And that's if you had that kind of industry anywhere near you.
Well, and here's the rest of the story, as they say. We had to go up to Alaska Pipeline, which was big inch pipeline from Prudhoe Bay all the way south.
Mm-hmm.
We had to hire those folks at 2x what I was making.
Wow.
So here's a person doing stick welding. He had a supervisor, he had a superintendent, and then there was me. The guy was making twice as. Actually, it was a team of people.
Yeah.
They were making twice as much as me, and I was 3-4 levels above them.
Yeah, but you were happy to have them on board.
Oh,
Otherwise, you couldn't build the plant.
I was ecstatic. I was jumping on the table, dancing.
Yeah.
Because we needed them,
Yeah.
and we couldn't find them.
But I think that gets amplified, though. That I mean, one is the market for the job market is slowing slightly, but I think this morning I heard something on the news that it was still close to 10 million openings, unfilled openings that across the country in the U.S., which is record high. There's more openings than there are people available, and the unemployment rate's really low. And folks are cycling through factories and plants that you're just a cog in the machine. Like I'm thinking of the Amazon warehouses where it's, pick this up, put it in the box, tape it shut, over and over again. I think they have something like it was like a 300% turnover per year is one of the statistics in one of their plants. It's like, it's not that rewarding of a job, but a lot of the trades, there's one young guy in our neighborhood. He told me a couple weeks ago, or about a year ago, that he got his, I think it was C license so he set up his own business as a contractor, electrician contractor, and he does mostly home electrical work type stuff, various projects, from wiring a house to doing additions to, setting up outdoor lights, stuff like that. And we were sitting down and chatting, and I says, you're one of the exceptions. There's not many people, and I don't know, he might be in his early 30s, that are pursuing it in the trades. And he goes, yeah, it's great. I got more work than I know what to do with. It's like, and I saw another guy, the other plumber, and he was booked out 2-3 months in advance. He says, I don't clear drains anymore. I don't have to, because I've got all these other projects that just keep lining it up. The issue is that we need all kinds of different talent in order to stand up a factory or to keep a factory going. And so this idea of reshoring is, we'll just put the equipment in and it's all automated. It'll be fine. Well, yeah. Good luck with that.
I'll give you just three quick examples. Got a call from a nuclear folks up in Seattle. We're building a lot of nuclear power plants, sodium, all types, fast reactor, maybe even fusion one of these days. All those plants are basically stainless steel. Can't find people.
Mm-hmm.
I just went to the doctor yesterday. The nurse there is saying, who I've known for a long time, hey, Amazon, believe it or not, is getting into healthcare.
Yeah, I heard that.
And they're paying people, nurses, $120 a year just to answer phones.
Yeah.
In the meantime, she was saying, my son is working for Amazon, basically lifting packages at $18 an hour.
Yeah.
Does he want to go into nursing? Nope.
Nope. Well, there's different people for different jobs, but the idea of, hey, I don't have to, empty bedpans and put in catheters and turn bodies over and all the other stuff. Physically, nursing is a demanding job. And if I can do telemedicine and help people and be efficient at it, cool.
Killer. Exactly.
Well, that might not be the right expression there.
Yeah, sorry about that. That's what happens when you have a 22-year-old daughter, right?
Okay.
Things like dope and killer mean different things than folks my age.
That's right.
But yeah, you're right.
So anyway, I mean, there's plenty of work out there with when a company's thinking through, well, we need to bring the factory back to the States. And part of it is tax incentives. Part of it is funding, offsets from the government for this, that, and the other thing, and incentives. There's increased amount of risk with just when in and around the time of COVID starting, China, basically shut down, and now all these containers weren't getting filled. And then all of a sudden they started filling them again. And then our docks and harbors and stuff were just, 100 container ships stacked up and waiting in queues. And then we didn't have enough truck drivers, enough warehouse space. It works great when it's just in time and everything works well. But it didn't take much of a glitch for that international supply chain. What was the name of that boat in the Suez Canal that went sideways? That kind of
Evergreen.
It just takes a small. Well, there was nothing small about that ship.
1,000 foot long.
To cause hundreds of millions, if not $1 billion, in disruption to supply chains and to deliveries and everything else, and factories shutting down because they don't have the parts they need to continue assembly because it's sitting on a container ship in the Suez Canal park there, or it's on a boat outside the Long Beach, California. A lot of that stuff prompted people to say, well, we need to bring it back to the States. And part of the political discussion was, what do you mean we don't know how to make, surgical masks or ventilators and all that other stuff? Well, we outsourced all that stuff to lower cost, manufacturing facilities around the world. Well, they just shut down and they don't want to send us anything. Now, what do you do?
Yeah. So it's interesting. I've been listening to you really carefully, Fred. So
it's scary.
Yeah, well, I'm going to go back on my one trick pony, and my one trick is the lens for everything is risk. So just in time now, it's just in case.
Well, but that was the reason we went into just in time is that the risk was minimized, that we thought we had it done and people would, the truck would arrive just as we needed the parts. And after a few years that just worked. And so part of that risk lens is that we got so used to that system and the risk of not getting as much profit from every transaction in every activity and minimizing costs and all the other things that it just slowly eroded our ability to withstand perturbations. That's the right word, right?
Well, variability again, which is your area.
Yeah. But if I'm worried about saving a nickel, per item on storage costs, for example, I am so focused on just saving that nickel so I make my quarterly numbers versus, well, what happens if that truck gets a flat tire? Or the docks are backed up, or the source where we're getting this stuff goes out of business or has an earthquake. We got so focused on ignoring. The hard part is that it took something like COVID, which was a major transition for all kinds of things, for people to go, yeah, just in case might make more sense.
Which means looking at the bigger picture.
Yeah.
Which means basically looking at it from the enterprise, the business model, the availability of products. And that's really hard for a lot of us, especially me, a geek engineer, who wants to look at the threaded fastener and not the, where's the stuff coming from?
Yeah. No, it's tough. And the hard part is that when, now we're saying, oh, we're going to reshore. Well, that's great. And I'm quite aware that most management teams and most financiers and banks and everybody else understands it's not as simple as just going, oh, let's, there's a building down the street, let's set that up and we're all set and ready to go. There's a lot goes to that. And I think the talent part is really caught a lot of people off guard, is that, well, geez, we just don't have people in the trades. I mean, housing construction is being limited because they can't find enough carpenters. It used to be just supplies early in the COVID era, essentially. But now it's, well, I can't find enough people that know how to swing a hammer. And it's not to belittle that skill. It does take skill to build a house and all of the trades that go into it.
And the cost.
Yeah.
I mean, I need to have my house painted. Went to the guy next door who's painting the house next door. I said, hey, can you give me a bid? He says, no, I can't. And I said, what?
I'm booked out 3 months and then I'm going on vacation for 3 months.
A year and a half.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And I said, well, can you give me a ballpark as to what it costs? He said, yeah, about 10,000. And I said, well, I had a bid for 6,500 2 years ago. And he said, hey, buddy, get real. This is the marketplace.
That's right. I can charge more because I can. And paint and everything else costs more too. Yeah, supply and demand. Exactly. Everything costs more too. No, that doesn't sound good. We need a new roof here, so I better start the process.
It'll cost you about 50% more.
Oh, I'm sure it will.
So let me leave with one final thought. Plants are going to be built like crazy. Automotive, battery, nuclear power. We don't have the people. And if we need to train the people, it's going to take them 4 years to go through the crafts to become a journeyman person or journeyman. And in the meantime, what are we going to do? And the costs of these plants are going to double. It used to be where you could do a takeoff on time, materials, product, and basically be within maybe 10, 20% of the final cost. Forget it. Those days are gone. Times are changing.
Well, yeah, there's that for sure. We didn't get into a whole lot of how to deal with this stuff other than just raise the awareness that, one, if you're interested in setting up a factory or working in a factory or are becoming part of a greenfield operation or bringing stuff back to the business, the factories back to the U.S., there's plenty of opportunity. But if you don't have the background and skills, there's a whole lot you need to know. And it's expensive to do it on the job building a new factory. And so there's just not, and it runs all the way from ops managers to the welders. There's risks in just, we don't have the people. And like you said, I think it's just going to mean it's going to cost more. Not a lot of solutions there, except a lot of opportunity. That's for sure. If you're good.
I'm looking at the opportunity side. Maybe the next podcast we can talk about solutions.
Yeah, well, we'll put it on the list and see what happens. Now, if you're listening to this and if you're seeing this or see it from a different point of view, let us know. Head over to accendoreliability.com/go/SOR, and you can find a couple of ways to get in touch with us. Greg and I and the other hosts of the show are available on LinkedIn or through our About pages on Accendo. There are plenty of ways for you to get in touch with us. I think it'd be a very short podcasts on solutions because I just can't think of any. So I got to count on our audience to give us some ideas here. See what we get. So
it's a tough problem and it's a real one.
It really is a real one. All right, cool. talk to you soon there, Greg. And thanks for the topic here. And I'm glad I hit record right away.
Fun conversation. Big
Right.
one. We'll talk about it again. Thanks,
Right.
Fred.
Cheers. Thanks for listening to Speaking of Reliability. We invite you to join the conversation. If you have a question or a topic that you think we should discuss in a future show, please let us know. You can find a comment box below the episode show notes, or just leave a note as part of a review on iTunes.